What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from ActTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. And today, I'm going to talk about It's What's Inside. It's a new movie on Netflix. It has audio description produced by International Visual Center, written by Liz Gutman, and narrated by Jabari Gray. And this was a film that is an acquisition for Netflix. I believe it premiered at Sundance and it went to, I think, South by Southwest. And yeah, so it got acquired. It's the little indie film that could, and it's an interesting film to talk about and discuss, and I'm glad I get to do it. So, what is It's What's Inside? It's What's Inside is one of those films. I do like Brittany O'Grady. The cast here really doesn't matter, and I'll explain why. This could be any people, and there's a way to do this. There's an indie way of doing it, which is basically what we get. There's like a, I don't know, like a Martin Scorsese way of doing it, where you find almost like 12. It's like 12 Angry Men, and you find like these really highbrow actors, and then they have to constantly change their personalities, and they manage to do it very like well in a very different sense. But it's a group of friends. Two of them are getting married, and they're uniting out of this place that is uniquely bizarre in and of itself. It's like this art installation thing that's attached to this place, and there's like a vagina thing. Anyway, it's weird. I love that was the choice. You could have them meet anywhere, and this is it. This is the place that they're meeting. So, yeah, they're having a little bit of fun, just some old friends seeing each other before the wedding. The wedding is supposed to happen, I think, like the next day or day after or something. Anyway, this is just sort of like friends getting together before the wedding. So, yeah. And then there's sort of like an extra friend who has a little bit of backstory that they go into. I'm trying also to avoid too many spoilers because I have to have some in order to explain what the film is. So there's a friend that they used to hang out with who had sort of like a random experience back in the day, and they're like, oh, I remember that. And they kind of go through the whole thing and show you this like flashback sequence thing as they tell it, the story of how this dude's sister kind of went crazy, and maybe they're not on the best terms with the guy, and they're a little worried about what it's going to be like for him to be there. But the main guy, the one who's getting married, is like, nah, man, we're cool. So in he walks, and he's got a briefcase. It's an old briefcase, and inside the briefcase is this machine, and you just have to accept the fact that this is a machine. Accept the sci-fi element of it. You have to accept the sci-fi element of it. This is a film that is asking you to take a leap on. It's like watching Hot Tub Time Machine, and you have to accept the fact that the hot tub is a time machine. So inside the briefcase is this device, and in order for you to be able to move forward, you have to accept the fact that the device does what it does, and that somebody was able to create it. And yes, I know we don't have this kind of technology, but there are plenty of times in horror and sci-fi films where we don't have the technology to be able to do this. Move on. Welcome to film. We quite frequently explore the imagination. So, what his briefcase does is it has a whole bunch of wires and stuff, and he connects these wires to people. And basically, when he flips a switch, it swaps people's consciousnesses into other people's bodies. So certain characters move into other bodies. And the first time they do this, everybody freaks out and they're like, oh my God. And then they're like, wow, that was insane. We should do that again. So they turn it into a game where they try to guess to see if they can guess who's in whose body. And as one might assume, things do not work out very well. They kind of get into trouble at some point in the film, and it's while people are not in their own bodies, and trouble ensues. I don't know. Again, I'm trying to avoid spoilers, but I have to at least cover that there is body swapping in here. So there are people who are in other bodies, and that they do it multiple times. So it's not as even reliable as being like, well, they did it once, so it's pretty easy. It's like, no, they do it multiple times. So that's what I was saying. Like this cast, I like Brittany O'Grady. I like some of these actors, but am I gonna say like they do like massive stretching to like make you really feel like that they are the other person? No, no. They all kind of keep these very sort of like, they all feel very sort of like generically college age to just sort of right out of college characters. You know, it's really hard for them to adapt into and to take certain personality quirks and traits. Um, this concept with, you know, highbrow actors would be really interesting to see what they do and to see how much they can mimic somebody else's likenesses. Uh, I don't know if that's really a directly complaint for the film, because I understand it's an indie film and you can't necessarily get Meryl Streep, Denzel Washington, you know, like that level of talent. But I'd love to see that level of talent do something like this and see how they reflect each other's mannerisms. You know, I'm saying I'd love to see like a body swap movie with Meryl Streep and Denzel Washington, where Denzel has to try to pretend he's Meryl Streep and Meryl has to pretend she's Denzel Washington. You know, like that kind of thing. When you open up those doors of possibilities and think about like that level of casting, that's when you kind of get into like acting brilliance. This is fine. It's not distracting, but also you realize everybody's just kind of also themselves, but they're not because their character has switched, but they still kind of feel like the same person. So, one of the things that I love about this film is the audio description, and Liz did an exceptional job on this. First of all, this is one of the rare opportunities where we actually get to know what these people look like, with some actual like racial ethnic definition, mentions of hairstyle, stuff like that. Some actual like character descriptions, so you actually have an idea of what everybody looks like going into this. And the characters, when they body swap, I think it's handled really well. So you know it's so and so in so and so's body, and they do it in a way where I think the blind audience will be able to follow it while also not being too wordy and wasting a whole lot of time by over phrasing it and over explaining. And you know what I'm saying? Like being, you know, by constantly saying, you know, Nikki, who is now in so and so's body, has now, you know, like, and they just, Nikki as blank, Nikki, you know, like that kind of thing. So that way you get a much quicker connection, and it allows for more audio description, because everything is about these little breaks in dialogue and what we get. Yeah, there's some backstory between these characters, and you kind of have to pick up on what they're saying to each other, and some people have some history, and that kind of stuff gets explored. There are these flashbacks, and on top of that, not only is the audio description impressive when it handles like the flashback sequences in addition to body swaps, but it also there are a couple times where the movie does sort of like, I want to say like a kind of like a reddish hue type thing, but it almost like an X-rays. So you'll see a character standing there, but then it'll swap it so that you can see who is actually there. You know what I'm saying? Like who's uh, uh, spirit, for lack of, but I don't know what to say. They're the person inside the person, who the person inside the person is. So, and it's just one of those films that it would be like impossible to follow. And it's one of those films that a lesser narrator could absolutely fuck up. This is one of those films that, like, thank God. So they're like, let's God, thank God, because it's one of those like mind-bogglingly hard to describe films where you're just like, we're not even getting in the weeds here with like, well, was the gore well described, or oh, did they uh, how many times did they use the word thrust in the sex scene? You know, like some of the basic things are that I've complained about in the past with audio description. It's like, no, this movie is just this movie is like a test for audio description narrators and writers. It's like you have to, and for the narrator too. I was talking with a friend who's an audio description writer. He's like, I want more people to realize like the importance that the writer gives in this, and it's not always just like the narrator. And it's like, well, part of that is crediting at the end. There's so many times where the writer isn't even credited, so most people don't even know who the writer is. That's why I give Liz a ton of props. I think Jabari does a nice voice here. I mean, I think he does a good job, but he also, to his credit, he does have to actually manage getting words into a certain amount of time. So he has to speak in a way in which he can be understood while also fitting these words in, because we can't lose an ounce of this audio description, because this film is so, there's so much to describe when somebody is in somebody else, and you kind of have longer descriptions as a result, because like you have to say two names to explain to somebody who that is. And because they swap multiple times, you can't just leave it at that. It's not like you can just reintroduce a character and say, well, they swapped, and that's how it's going to be for the rest of the movie. It's like, no, they'll swap back, and then they'll swap again, and then they'll swap back, and then they'll swap again. So because that's sort of like the theme of the movie, and they go through like multiple rounds of this, it's not even something that you can like put a finite pin in and say, well, they've swapped and that's how it is. Done. They will not swap back. So, no, that's not what it is. So, yeah, I think it's really sort of an interesting case study for audio description as a film. And I'm ecstatic that this exists. I'm ecstatic that it got audio description. I love the fact that Liz got this, and she was able to write the audio description for this. Probably more so than anything about the film. The film itself, it has an odd tone to it. It's a little hard to read. It tackles some serious subject matter at some points, but it also kind of always feels quirky to me. It's really hard to nail down to a genre. It feels like something that you could easily write off as being a horror movie, which is why I'm sure that they, like, Netflix didn't know what to do with this, so they were like, well, let's put it in October. It's not really going to be fulfilling as a spooky season scary movie, but I can see why they would make that choice. There are elements here where I'm like, okay, I get what you're doing. I understand it, but it's also not dramatically serious. It's not a scary thriller. They're not jump scares. It's a very hard read for what type of genre it is. So in some ways, just broadly defining it as science fiction is almost the way to go, because there's a sci-fi element here. We don't normally body swap. It does remind me of last year, with the body swap that we had in Talk to Me, where they had the hold on the hand, but that was presented in a completely different tone. That when I'm talking about tone, that has a tone to it. That is, we are scary. What we're doing here is meant to unnerve you. And there's very clear gore, very clear violence. It's obviously setting a tone here. I don't know what this director's trying, like what they had in mind. It's a very interesting piece. I would be interested. I'm intrigued to see more from them and see what kind of style this director has, because it feels fresh. I don't necessarily agree with like every life choice that they made here, but at the same time, I like it because it feels different than everything else. And I kind of give the casting thing a pass because it's like it's an independent film. So, um, I mean, could they have scoured for more and gotten these more serious performers and tried to get actors who could really mimic and really sort of bring out the little effects of other people? Probably. And I've seen Brittany O'Grady do some stuff before, and I think she's got more in her than that. And some, so, but I don't know about all the actors. So, yeah, you could have done a broader, but again, the tone of this is light. So I don't know that they were necessarily that worried about it. It's a very interesting film, and I hope everybody watches it. If you made it this far, if you're blind, visually impaired, and you're here for audio description enthusiasts, I would encourage you to watch this. There's not really anything objectionable here. There's a little bit of sex, a little bit of violence, some drug use, and some profanity. I don't think that there's not that. If you're a blind person and like the concept of described nudity bothers you, I don't understand. I've already mentioned there's some sex, but I don't know that there's actually nudity in this. So yeah, it's a pretty safe film. I don't think people find it too objectionable. So I would say, if you're really interested in the concept of audio description and like what audio description can do for a film, and why we need it and why we should have it, this is a film that screams audio description. There's no way this film isn't going to be in my top for the year, just because I think Liz did an exceptional job, and it's the kind of film that would be completely unwatchable without audio description, like on a high level. The only other film that I can think of this year that is actually more unwatchable is Sasquatch Sunset, which has no dialogue. So you'd just be sitting there the whole time going, what is this? What is life? So yeah, this is a film where, thank God. So I'm really proud for Liz on this, and for nailing it, and for hitting this one out of the park. This is some really this is a bitch of a film, and she did an exceptional job. And the film is interesting and quirky and does its own thing. And is it spooky? Nah, no, it's not really. Is it? So if you're somebody who's looking for something on Halloween that maybe has like a little bit of a little spice to it, but is not full on spooky, has just like a moment where you could be like, that should count. That should that little bit of violence that they have there, that should qualify this. I've watched a horror movie. You haven't really, but okay. If you're looking for that kind of thing this Halloween season, then this won't be perfect for you. You're not gonna be scared. I don't think it's you'd have to really be scared of everything in life to be scared of this movie. So yeah. Could there be better? Yeah, some better casting, a couple choices, but most of all, I think it's a strong movie. So I'm gonna give it What's Inside a B+. I liked it. Mikey likes it, or Mackie likes it, I guess, because I'm a Mac movie guy. Anyway, that's my review of It's What's Inside, and yeah, I'm not gonna spoil it for you. I gave you what you needed. I had to talk about the body swapping, and I tried not to talk about anything else. And you'll see that there's more to it than when you watch the film. I'm just gonna assume you're gonna watch it because I told you to. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I will see you guys on the other side.